Welcome to the Yes to Entrepreneurship podcast. So real quick, before I jump into the conversation with this week's guest, I just want to let you know what this show's about. Really, this show is just about all the conversations we, entrepreneurs, those of us who are the why notters, have around entrepreneurship. It's the conversation that you don't typically hear because you just see those fun posts on Instagram and Facebook where we're hanging out on yachts or we're making a ton of money and driving these fancy cars, when reality is that's not real life. Real life is trying to figure out how you're going to pay bills, trying to figure out if you're going to make rent this month, trying to figure out if that new client really is going to help move you forward or if they're really going to bring you down. Really, anything goes in these conversations. And you, the listener, gets to eavesdrop in on these conversations that I'm having with fellow entrepreneurs. So grab your cup of coffee, grab your water, grab your tea, whatever it is that you enjoy, and a pen and paper because you're about to take some notes. Also, be sure to share this out. Oh, here comes my guest. Talk to you soon.
Hello, Ed. How are you?
I'm good. Catch me up. What is going on with you? Because I see so many awesome updates online from you on all of the social networks, which is really cool and just crazy. So what's going on with you? What's new?
It's been a very interesting time. I'm just coming up to my 2 years in business.
Congrats.
Yeah, it's actually 2 and a bit, but it's kind of I think it's 2 years where I've really understood what I did, if that makes sense.
Yes.
But what's really interesting is even from there, it's evolved. I think business is just always evolving, which is very cool. But what I'm doing now is, obviously I published my book in October last year, 2018. And so from there, that's led to me doing quite a lot of public speaking. I found this year particularly I've done more speaking events, which I now get paid to do. So it's become it's become a business revenue stream. So, another product I didn't really think I'd have in my collateral, I guess.
Yeah.
So more speaking, obviously lots of lovely book sales. That's gone down a storm, and I'm so happy everybody loves it. And then the last thing I've been doing is I've developed what we call SME here in the UK, which is the small medium enterprise market. So these are kind of the smaller businesses from, say, 5 million turnover, this is pounds, 5 million turnover upwards. Those kind of businesses, 25 plus staff. So they're entrepreneurial-led businesses, but they're growing. And I've developed a program for them because a lot of my stuff was for the individual entrepreneur. So now we're going into that place where I'm helping businesses to really look at their sales teams and their sales strategy. And then what I discovered was another thing that I talked about that suddenly became a brand, and I've trademarked, is the UHP. Because we always talk about USP. So your unique selling proposition. We've talked about that for years, Ed. I'm sure you have in the US.
Yep.
And suddenly I thought, well, I'm all about humans and I'm all about people. So we should be really thinking about what's our UHP, so our unique human proposition. And that's now part of my program.
Oh my gosh, there's so much to unpack here. I love this. Okay. This is awesome. Huge congrats, by the way, on all of that, and especially within the 2 years or so that you've been doing this. It's amazing. And let's just start with the book, because first off, catch me up on the book part of it, because that sounds like that is what kicked everything off. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, before the book, I decided that I was going to teach people to sell, but not in the way that I had been watching people be trained. I didn't like this transactional methodology. So I created my own emotional methodology, I guess. I like to call it the emotional glue, Ed, that sticks everything together.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, I know. I liked it. Somebody actually sort of said that's kind of what you do, and I've clung to that because it makes sense. And then I created this Live It, Love It, Sell It, because this was all about what I believe is life skills, our sales skills, everything we already know how to do in life. is what we use in terms of our human skills in selling.
Yeah.
So I created that methodology, and from that I then decided to write the book about it, because then having it in a book format meant that people could just pick it up and then really start to understand where I'm coming from. You know, when I'm waffling on, oh gosh, that's what this woman means, you know.
Right.
So it's the sales road trip, is the live it, love it, sell it, and that's what it's all about, and that's the book. So
That, and how long did it take you roughly to go from idea to actually publishing the book? Because I know a lot of entrepreneurs that I've talked to and see online, they're all about trying to get their book published and, you know, going self-published, going regular traditional route. There's so many different ways, and it's really overwhelming. So what kind of happened for you? Did you go self-published, or what went?
So the book actually was strange, because I don't think I set out to write a book. I just decided I'd probably write a book about Dragon's Den. So
Yeah.
just to throw something else into the kind of conversation.
Yeah.
My previous business, quite some years ago, I took on to, in the UK, we call the Dragon's Den. Now in the US, you call it Shark Tank, I think, Ed.
Yes, correct. Yep.
Okay.
Good old Shark Tank.
Imagine that scenario. It's called Dragon's Den in the UK, and I went on a really early series of that, and I got investment. And I wanted to write the book about that story, because that's also my TEDx talk story.
Okay.
But when I chatted to a particular writing coach, she said to me, I don't think your book should be that. I think your book needs to be about sales and about your live it, love it, sell it. So that actually the book happened in terms of, I never thought I'd write one. And then when I did write one, it wasn't about what I thought I would write it about. But I started to write it in August 2017. And it took me a year to write the book. So in August 2018, it was ready, full manuscript, and it went to the publisher. Now, the publisher I used, back to the question you asked, I used a hybrid publisher.
Oh.
The difference for me there was, with the hybrid publisher, you pay them a fee, okay? And that can really vary. So you try and get a good deal if you can. And you pay them a fee to edit your book properly and professionally and set it so that it's properly laid out. Because I would never know how to do that.
Right.
And also, I wouldn't want spelling mistakes and grammatical errors in it. So you pay for that, which I think is massively valuable. And then they do things like help you to design your book cover, and equally to load it all up to Amazon and perhaps manage that side.
Oh, cool.
So for me, it was basically, I'd finished writing the manuscript, I sent it to the publisher, and then within, we published on 1st of October. So from the end of August to the 1st of October, I therefore had a published book.
Wow. And that is super cool, to go from not even thinking about writing a book to writing a book to writing a book about a whole topic that you didn't think you would be on, and then within a year have that up and running and out there. Like, that just blows my mind.
Ed, I think we call it in the UK trusting the universe, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And so this is totally how entrepreneurship works for all of us. It's one of those things where we try to plan things out, and we realize that actually most of the time it doesn't plan out the way we had thought it would. And so when you were writing the book and promoting the book, because I know I've seen you promoting the book a lot, were there other shiny objects pulling at you and trying to get you to be distracted and kind of take you away from the book, or were you just 110% focused on just the book?
Okay, that's a great question, I think. Well, there's a bit of it that came, I think, at the point I was writing the book, actually, Ed. So when I think about the year that I took to write the book, I started it in August 2017. By Christmas, I said to the lady who was kind of helping me, she was accountability kind of writing coach.
Oh, cool.
I said to her that Christmas, I'm not going to write this book anymore. And she said, what? And I said, no, I said, it's rubbish. I said, everybody knows this stuff. You know, this is just bulk standard sales stuff and nobody's going to read it. So she said to me, well, look, have a month off. She was very clever when she did this. Have a month off, she said, because she realized I was quite tired and it had become a chore. And the moment that when you're writing it becomes a chore, then you need to stop, because it's not coming from the heart anymore. So I took this month off, and then I carried on writing again. And by the following month, when we had our call, I'd got a date that I was going to finish it. I'd got renewed energy to write it, and I realized that people did want to read what I'd got to write. So that happened during the writing of the book. Once it was published, Ed, it just becomes almost like a wonderfully beautiful business card. And I think this is a really important thing to say, because when people write books, sometimes they think the book's just going to make them rich.
Right.
Or they'll write another book, or they'll write 10 books. But actually what happens is your book becomes the calling card. The book is what comes first sometimes before coaching. The book also can become something you sell once you're speaking. So it's almost that added thing, you know, as I say, this valuable calling card, I think is a good way to sort of describe it.
Yeah, and I would agree with you. I have yet to write my book. I mean, some parts are written and there's been revisions and stuff, but I have noticed over the last probably year or so that it seems to be that way, where the book is what starts people for wherever they're trying to go, and it usually leads to the speaking gigs and to anything else that they build out. So it's very interesting that you say that and call it, you know, the calling card, because I think that's pretty darn accurate.
It is really, and I think it's important that people understand the power of having a book. It's like this real authority, Ed. You know, especially when you're speaking. If you're a speaker and you've got a book, all of a sudden when you get on stage, it's like, actually, oh my goodness, well, she's written a book about this, so she actually must be good, or he must be good. And that's the thing, you see, that's what you have to remember, what a book really is to you. So yes, it's mine's £14.99 to buy. Yes, of course it's a revenue stream, but it's so much more than that. You can start using it in so many different ways. And I think that's when you get really smart about books.
Yeah, well, and kind of going back to what you had said earlier, it basically is the sales roadmap for you, because it really allows you to keep coming back to your core. Like, you know, in case you start going off on a tangent or something, you can have that, you know, like you took that month off, you can have a little break and say, okay, I need to focus and figure out what is it that I'm talking about. Oh yeah, here's my book, and this is what I need to keep going back to.
Yeah. Do you know, it's the other funny thing is, now you've said that, Ed, I actually read my book. I go back to my own book and
I
read
love it
sometimes, because it's really weird, isn't it? You wrote the book and sometimes you think, well, gosh, I don't really remember what I said about this.
but you know, it's like I always talk about and remind people, is that we have to pause and look back. We have to reflect on what we've done in order to keep moving forward, and to remind ourselves that we actually accomplished XYZ, and that it wasn't just a task to check off the list, because we're always trying to make sure that we stay ahead of the curve and that we're on top of our to-do list, but we rarely take the time to look back and say, oh, I wrote a book.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good, I can't believe I said that. I'm going to have to use that again. Like, it's just interesting.
Amazing, honestly, Ed. And you still pinch yourself, and gosh, it's coming up. It's not really that long before it'll be a year since I published it.
Yeah.
I still have to go, oh my goodness, I'm an author. I wrote a book, you know, it is. But it's such an amazing feeling, and it's such an achievement. And the biggest thing is when you get your reviews and people write to you. You know, when you get a stranger send you a message and say, oh my goodness, you've just changed everything I felt about sales. And you sit and you think, that's why I wrote this book. That's exactly why I did it, you know?
Yes. And speaking of reviews, because, you know, I love having people share their feedback, and I look at feedback as opportunities and strengths and opportunities. Let me ask you, because so many business owners that I talk to, when I tell them, you know, turn on the reviews tab on their Facebook page and ask for testimonials and all of this, they're hesitant because they're afraid of getting that one bad review. And so I'm curious what your thoughts are around reviews and like getting a bad review. Maybe you have one, maybe you haven't, I just know that that's a concern for a lot of entrepreneurs, and I'm just curious what your take is.
Yeah, I mean, again, what a great question, Ed, because it is such a good one. It's something we all suffer from, isn't it? That kind of
Yeah.
imposter syndrome. What if nobody likes what I've done? That's the
Yep.
biggest fear, I think, when you come to publish a book is, oh my goodness, what if everybody thinks this is rubbish?
Right.
So I've been so fortunate. I've had amazing reviews. I've been very, very lucky because clearly the people who have bought my book bought it for the right reasons and they enjoyed it and it changed their worlds and they
Good.
loved it. And so that's super. But really interesting, I posted on LinkedIn actually, oh gosh, several months ago now. I got a 4-star review, Ed, right? You're going to laugh at this because obviously all these great big 5-star reviews kept coming in and it was really lovely. And I got this 4-star review and he said something like, I think this was a lovely book, but I think the person who wrote it saw it as a marketing exercise for herself. Okay. And I thought, oh my goodness, how rude, and, as you do. And it was really interesting what I went through. There was the self-doubt, there was a little bit of anger, a little bit of, oh my goodness, he just didn't understand what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
But ultimately, actually, not everyone is going to love what you do, whether it's a book, whether it's your coaching, whether it's a song you sing, it doesn't matter. In life, not everyone is going to love what you do and not everyone will buy from you. So it's okay. It's okay. And to get just 1 4-star in all of those lovely 5 stars, it's okay. This man, I sent him love, Ed. I sent him lots of love. And that made me feel better.
and I love how you described the process, because I know that that's how we all go through that process of having the quick automatic defense, like, oh, I can't believe this. And then we go through all of the channels, and it starts rolling through. But then we have to remind ourselves to pick ourselves up and understand that we're not for everyone. And maybe they didn't read it correctly or understand, they weren't in the right mindset. That's what I've learned a lot about this whole entrepreneur journey, especially in the last 6 months, maybe a year now, is that it is all about mindset and being in the right mind space to understand what's going on. And I think we do that on a daily basis, even when we just read an email. Maybe we're in a rush and we read something and we're like thinking, oh my gosh, they sound angry. They were super short with me. Like, didn't they see that I wrote it or that I copied it? Or, and I feel like there's those moments where we have to just breathe and say, you know what? I have to come back to this before I respond or before I write this review, because I'm just not in the right mindset. And I got to make sure that I'm not going to regret it later.
I think that's really good advice, actually. Just that's kind of take a breath. Pause for a minute, think about what this really means. And actually, maybe that guy did read it correctly for him in his world. Yep. And I think this is the other thing, you talk about mindset. I love mindset. It's a big part of my live it, love it, sell it methodology.
I was going to ask you.
Yeah. But I also think it's about core values. And so, I believe that how we really truly connect as humans is usually because we have those same values.
Yep.
And that's often the people who have read my book, they love it because they get it, because it's how I've spoken and what my thoughts were, because that's what the book is. So they've connected. And usually it's because we've got the same values. So yeah, it's really interesting. The biggest lesson, Ed, is it's okay. Pause, breathe, and let it go.
Yes, I love that. And tell me, so we got the book, and then we go into speaking. And what are you speaking regarding your book, or are there different topics that people are requesting you speak on? Like, how does that go? Because I know speaking is a big one for a lot of people, and it can be a great way to get your name out there, as well as a little extra income once they start actually paying for you to speak.
Yeah, it is, definitely. I would encourage almost every entrepreneur to think of it as a future revenue stream for them, or part of their marketing mix, whatever they want to say, you know. But actually, we all have the ability, if we really want to stand up and speak. You know, most of us are fortunate to be able to do that. The beauty of speaking is, I think there's two kind of categories, if you like. There's a workshop educational kind of speaking. So, you know, when you perhaps run a session where you give people elements to take away with them.
Yep.
You know, maybe, I don't know, 3 top tips, for instance. So they've got something to go away with that they actually action. That's what I call kind of a workshop type of talk.
Love
and
it.
So I've done a few of them. Now, the talks I like the most are what I like to call the inspirational speaking. So what happens with this is you're planting seeds with your audience, okay? So you're really connecting with them and you're getting them to think, oh my goodness, what if? Oh, I never thought of it like that. But you're not really giving them the solution. You're just making them feel a little bit excited and a bit inspired, and actually you want them to leave wanting more, okay? So for me, there's 2 different types of talk. Does that make sense?
Yes, totally. I'm writing down that. I love how you summed it up perfectly. The inspirational one is planting the seeds. Like, and as you know, I'm sure I have a hard time just planting the seed. I'm like, plant the seed, water. Here's the sunshine. Here's the tools to, you know, trim everything and go.
Yeah, let's give you the garden or the forest.
Yeah,
I know.
I'm like, geez, I got to get better about that. But yeah, it's so true that having that and being able to just open people's eyes up and let them see what's possible and provide them those routes, those resources to learn more and to get to the next stage.
Exactly. I mean, you've got to think about the fact, if you look at it with your business head on, the reason why speaking in that inspirational space is really good is because you'll probably get rebooked because your audience go away buzzing. And the second thing is you'll then get people come up and say, actually, I want more. So therefore, okay, well, actually, we can talk about my program, or you can get some books for your team, or, you know, so then you're then selling a product, or, you know, it's revenue generating in another way for your business. So it's a really clever way to think about it, and it's not conning the audience in any way. Audiences love this stuff. They want their audiences, any event organizer wants an audience to go away wanting more. That's really the ultimate outcome they want. So that's the real gold of speaking, I think, is being one of those inspirational type speakers.
Yeah, and so by doing the speaking, this is how you got noticed by the SME, is that correct?
Yeah, the idea for me now is that I now have this super duper SME program for these smaller medium enterprises in the UK. I mean, I work all over the world, quite honestly.
Yeah.
But if I focus just in the UK where I live, we have about 98 to 99% of the businesses in the UK are actually SME businesses. So you see the amount of market we have to go at.
Wow.
With that. So if I'm then talking at a conference or a business show, or, you know, something like that, where a lot of these guys are going to be gathering, then I've got this captive audience who are listening to me for 20 minutes, half an hour. As long as I'm good and I'm inspiring and I leave them wanting more, suddenly I've marketed to, you know, a mass of people in one half-hour session.
That is, I'm like loving that. I'm writing that down. Good, leaving them inspired and leaving them wanting more. So true. And when it comes to the different businesses that you've worked with and that you're seeing and experiencing, do you see, I guess maybe even more specifically with sales, do you see like a common links of wins, or I hate using the word failures, I always look at it as opportunities that come across? Because for instance, I know that even for people who are just starting out, and sometimes people who have been in business for a few years, selling is not necessarily their thing. Like for me, I am so about the creativity and being able to just do the work. When it comes to pricing and having to actually do the sale, I'm like, yeah, okay, well, here we go, like whatever. It's just not my thing. I can make it happen, but it's just not my thing. And so I'm just curious, what you maybe have seen with other entrepreneurs, or maybe have experienced yourself coming from that background.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. My background's really interesting because I've kind of worked in so many different sectors. You wouldn't believe I've sold so many different things, Ed. It's quite interesting, really. And I feel like
that's super cool. You should, if you haven't done so already, you should totally do a blog post or even a Facebook Live or something that has basically the history of things you've sold, just to be like a fun looking at the different types. Because I'm already seeing in my mind, you've gone from infomercials to selling, necklaces, to selling crock pots, to selling cars, and all these crazy things. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what else have you sold?
Yeah. So actually, that's a really good idea. I'm writing that one down, Ed, because
Yes.
I'm going to take that one from you.
Yeah, you totally should. Because I'm doing the same thing, not with my sales, but I'm actually going to be doing the same thing with my brands, my businesses that I've created over the years, because it's a lot of fun starting the process and building up things. And I created both my logos, well, all of my logos, and all these things. And it's like, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be done. And it's one of those things where, again, reflecting on what we've done and be able to see how far we've come. And it's fun for new people to see as well.
It is, because then it also tells them a little bit about who you are as a person, doesn't it, as well?
Yes.
But I think, going back to that question, it's really quite interesting again. I mean, you've got some good questions here, Ed, actually. I'm enjoying your questions.
Good.
But I think what's interesting is, because I've worked in all of those different sectors, selling all of those different things, which keep peeled, because I'm going to do a little thing on that.
Yes.
I think what's happened for me is I've realised that sales is about people, not about the products you sell. Mm-hmm. And so that's where the whole live it, love it, sell it methodology came from, where, we're talking about how we connect to humans as people, as opposed to the product we're trying to sell to them. And that's the difference for me in what I see. So I'll work with lots of different sectors and industries. It doesn't actually really matter to me.
Yep.
Because I've worked in so many. But what I focus on for them is actually the people they have in their business, the people they're trying to sell to, and how they connect to those people in that lovely human way in order to get them to buy their solution. So it's like it doesn't become a sales process any longer. It becomes a conversation and a relationship.
Yes.
Yeah?
I love it. It becomes a conversation. Exactly.
Exactly. So the thing is, when lots of people say to me, oh yeah, but what sectors do you really work in? Well, any sectors. I really don't mind what it is. I am not an expert in all of the products that exist in the world. But what I do believe I'm an expert in, having done it for 30 plus years, is how to create human conversation and relationships.
Yes.
And that's it. That's what I believe sales is. So, when you said to me, oh, sales isn't really my thing, I do it, but it's not really my thing.
Right.
Ed, sales is absolutely 100% your thing. And it is because of your personality, of your energy, of your creativity. That's sales.
Yeah. Okay? And now that you say that, I'm like, you're 100% correct. And I mean, and to be honest, that is why, looking back at history, that is why when I worked at Apple, I was the number one in sales, not because I was selling the highest, most expensive items to every single person that walked in the door. It was because of exactly what you talked about, connecting with people, having the conversation, and being able to really get to know the customer and what it is that they're looking for, and maybe what they don't even know they need, and being able to open those doors for them. And it's huge. And to be able to come from that standpoint, and that's why I think we hit it off so well so early on, is because we both know that we can adapt to any business, any situation, what we teach, because it's basically common sense for us. Because it's just being human, and we're genuinely just people, and we connect with each other, and we love what we do, and we can make it work anywhere.
Exactly. And I think, people tell themselves this story continually about what sales is, which is
Yes.
where then the statement that comes back is, I don't like sales, I can't sell,
Yep.
and I hear it again and again and again. And it's because they have a picture in their mind or a story in their head of what sales is, which is actually completely wrong. And so that's why I almost strip it back. I like to untrain anyone who's ever been trained to sell. That's another thing I say. But that's also where this UHP has come from for me, this unique human proposition, because it's all about who you are.
Yeah.
Ed, if I met anyone else on the planet, he would not be Ed. There would only be one Ed.
Thankfully.
No, but that's a brilliant thing.
Yeah. Yep.
I think it is a good thing, but in a really positive way. But there's no other Jules White on the planet either. And ditto, and same for every person listening. There's no one else like you on this planet, and that's your unique human proposition. Now you start to learn about how you use that to connect with other humans. Now you're selling, and now you're selling in a way that no one on the earth else can sell.
And that's the truth, and that's what we talk about all the time. I mean, for my Facebook lives and stuff, it's like we have to show up, we have to deliver our information, and then we engage with whoever wants to engage with us. And all we can do is those three things, which is why I teach that to people, is that basically it's not just business. Like I tell people, those are the three keys to success in whatever you do: is show up, deliver, and engage. And from there, everything else will fall into place.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so now we have the book, we have the speaking, we have this new venture with the SME. And I want to know, how do you manage it all? Because it seems like that can be very stressful and time consuming, just one of those. And you got all of these moving parts. And how do you manage it?
Okay, so I think the key to it really is not having too many products.
Yes.
And I know that probably some listeners might be thinking, well, actually, she's a service provider, because I am. I help to coach and train sales. But what we do is we productize those things and we make them into a product, because you and I talked about this, Ed.
Yeah.
So all these things you've just mentioned are actually products that I sell. So not having too many is kind of the first thing, I think. Don't have 100 products, because then it really gets tough and confusing. But have yourself a portfolio of maybe 3 to 5 different types of products that you can sell. Okay, this is just hypothetically talking.
Yep.
And that means then that you're not overwhelmed with all the things you sell, and so you're not going to get confused yourself. And then the second thing is that every single one of those products connect. And so everything that I do is live it, love it, sell it. So my book is live it, love it, sell it. My online course is live it, love it, sell it. Now, then I've got my UHP, which is my unique human proposition, but that connects straight back to the foundation model of live it, love it, sell it. I've then got my podcast, which is called The Human Conversation. What's the fundamental thing in live it, love it, sell it? Having a human conversation. So you see, everything I do connects.
Yep.
Yeah?
And so that's important.
It is really important, because then your client doesn't get confused and you don't get confused. And if you're in a conversation with a client, what happens is you could actually talk about whatever products are relevant to them. And you're not having to worry about what it might be called or where it is or what it actually does, because it's all connected. But it's about what's relevant then to the client.
Yes. And so when because you're probably well into it now, but when you were building this, because that's always the struggle, right? Is that when you're in the mix and you're building this out, it gets kind of complicated, and you start thinking of, well, I can create the online course. I can also create the digital products so that I could sell t-shirts and keychains and all of these things. And it gets overwhelming. Did you kind of back up for a second and just say, okay, where's my pen and paper? Let's map this out. Or did you work with a coach, or did you just go off of the book? And the book was, again, the foundation that built everything else.
I think the book was definitely the foundation.
So it was the single product.
Yeah, because the book was Live It, Love It, Sell It. That's where it was born as the foundation, as the sales road trip, let's call it, Ed. That was where it all started, was the book. So I think everything actually came from the book. An online course is pretty easy to do if you just do it as a one course. That's all I did. I never did 100 modules. I literally did a basic Live It, Love It, Sell It course, video based, online. You can buy it. So, that serves that market. And then the other thing I did stop and take a breath, because then I thought, right, I want to do my one-to-one coaching. I want to make that good. I want to really get that going in a way that I know works really well, which means practice and do lots of it.
Yeah.
And so I focused on that. And then when I realized that was great and it worked the way I was doing it, then I've got that basis to move it into something else, which ultimately has been like my UHP, for instance.
Okay.
And so that's how I've built mine. And it has been over 2 years, remember. So it hasn't been like I've just created 5 products, bang, now I'm going to sell them. Yeah. So the journey's actually been quite an evolution and an organic growth. And I think that's another thing. It's okay for that to happen. You don't have to go at 100 miles an hour, and it doesn't have to all be done all at once. And that's okay.
And that's so true. And because I love tying in the tech, when you first started with the book, we'll just start there. Did you have a website up and running? Did you have all the social media channels, like that kind of aspect? Because usually that's the struggle for people, is the tech part and trying to get everything perfect before they actually launch whatever it is that they're promoting.
Yeah. So I started as Compassio Coaching. That was before Live It, Love It, Sell It. That was way back when I first started. So I just wanted to be a coach. So I called it Compassio, which was Latin for empathy.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so that was where I started. Now, once I'd created Live It, Love It, Sell It, and I trademarked it, I realised actually Compassio didn't mean anything to anyone.
Yeah.
So then I evolved all of my Facebook and my Facebook page and my Facebook group and my LinkedIn and everything else. Gradually, I made it all Live It, Love It, Sell It. And then I bought the domain, Live It, Love It, Sell It. And then I fed it back into my website, which was, of course, compassiocoaching.co.uk. So again, an evolution, Ed.
Yes.
But now everything is Live It, Love It, Sell It. So everything connects back to that. Even I have a speaker website as an individual website, and that's liveitloveitsellit.me. And that's because then I have one place for agents to go to, which is just purely about my speaking. And my YouTube channel is Live It, Love It, Sell It. So yeah, everything's come together.
And I love how you talked about the evolution of it, because that is the key that I think we all forget, myself included sometimes, that it does take time and that it evolves. The more that you are in it and that you're doing the work, you learn and you grow. I always say that you have to start somewhere, and then you continue to move forward by learning and applying what you're learning. Because it's one thing to sit there and read a book or listen to a podcast or watch a TED Talk or whatever. It's a whole nother thing, though, to take what you just learned and actually apply it to whatever it is you're doing or want to do.
Yeah, definitely. Allow yourself to evolve. Allow yourself to, if you really want to and it feels right, go into a slightly different direction. It's actually okay. Sometimes we don't really like change very much as human beings. We don't like it. It's a bit fearful. It's outside our comfort zone. But if you allow that change to feel good intuitively, let's say, then it's an okay change to make. And everything has to make sense, and keep it simple. So imagine if you're the audience and if you're the client. I always say step into the shoes of your client.
Yes.
Does Compasio coaching make sense anymore? No, it doesn't. It doesn't mean anything anymore. Okay, what does? Well, live it, love it, sell it does, because that's everything I talk about. Okay, now we need to make some changes.
And to give yourself that permission is huge. Like,
Massive.
that is so awesome that you did that. And it's hard for us, because I mean, I've done that before too. It's hard for us to be able to say it's okay to make that change, to pivot, because I don't know if it's what the messages we get from society or what, but it's always feels like it's not okay to change something, because you have to stick with what you started, because otherwise it's a failure if you don't. And it's like, no, if you're growing and you're evolving and learning and knowing what it is that you and your audience wants, then you need to adapt to that and keep moving forward with it.
Yeah, because it is always about your client and your audience. It's not about you.
Yes.
And actually, the fear of change is our own. It's our own fear. It's not usually even society, because it's us saying, oh gosh, what's everyone going to think? But we're saying that to ourselves, Ed. It's only us telling ourselves that. So it's internal fear is usually the reason we don't like change. It's that fight or flight thing, isn't it? From those years ago when we were cavemen.
Right.
It is, it's how our brain works. Our oldest part of our brain, the limbic part of our brain, that's what it does. It says, actually, we're safe. We don't need to change. Just stay still here. Don't move.
Yeah, it's so true. And so what do you have next in the works? Is it just focusing on the SME, or do you have some other big things in the works?
No, there's nothing overly big now. I think, again, going back to what we've already said, it's about me now just honing in on making everything I've already got even better. Yeah. So I'm not going to be inventing anything new for the foreseeable future that I know about yet.
Yes.
But it's about my book. My book still exists, and a lot of people still haven't seen it and don't even know about it. So it's that ongoing promotion. My speaking, if I can keep evolving my speaking, I'm going to absolutely love that, because I just enjoy it so much. Yeah. And then also the SME programs, if I can get some of those going through the year and make a real difference for businesses to see sales in a different way, then I'm happy. I'm a really happy entrepreneur if all of those things carry on.
I would say so too. And let me ask you one more thing about the book part. When you are, because you brought up a great point that, obviously still getting people to be aware of it is still a task. And it's one of those things that, in today's world, we think, oh, well, if I posted about it on social media one time today, or 5 times today, or 20 times this week, the whole world should know. But in reality, they really don't. So how are you going about the marketing efforts in terms of getting your book out there, just so people can be aware of it?
I mean, again, it's very organic, Ed. I don't have huge budgets to, and I never have with my book. I'm quite proud of that, actually. I've only ever organically promoted it. So I don't buy a number 1 slot, like you can.
Yeah.
Basically, I look at things like, what have I been doing that's fun around the book? So we had a load of people. I have a book road trip gallery on my Facebook page.
Oh, cool.
So people who have the book take a picture of it wherever they're going or where they live or whatever. And I have a gallery of pictures of where my book has been around the world, okay? So that's something I can keep churning up every now and again and say, oh, by the way, did you know about my gallery? Have you had my book? Please send me a picture. Yes. And so that's another thing. So everybody gets excited about that. It's things like the recommendations. It's things like book reviews. It's things like book awards. Enter awards with your book. It's things like when you're speaking, make sure you can sell your book at the speaking event, or even that the organizer gets 50 copies in the deal. And then if there's 150 people there, another 100 will want the book, so they want to buy it. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
It's always being on the end of being creative around your book. Have I mentioned my book lately? Did I talk about a blog where I could then mention this is from my book? You know, it's always about, always about having your book in there somewhere in that conversation. Definitely.
And that is why, again, tying it all back to the beginning, the book is what set the foundation and is basically your roadmap that you can keep coming back to for new ideas, for making sure you're staying on track, for whatever else comes next. Like, that is the beauty of it. And I'm getting chills. I'm like, oh, it is so nice. And now I'm like, okay, the book. I got to get the book going.
Yeah, get your book done, Ed. I'll keep you accountable, shall I?
Yeah. Well, and what's funny too is that I have to look at my lesson plans, because I created lesson plans for Yes to Entrepreneurship. And there's, talking about change and pivoting, there's the big movement that I'm working on with this. And it's going to be big. And it's really cool because I wrote out the lessons with the mindset that would most likely be the book. And so now I just have to go back and look at the lessons and see what changes I need to make to make it adaptable for the book. But it's funny because I think I wrote the lessons exactly like I would have wrote the book. So it's really interesting when I go back and look at it.
It's very interesting writing a book, Ed. It really is. And my book, it's obviously Live It, Love It, Sell It, in that order. That's where it starts, with Live It. I actually wrote Love It first, then I wrote Live It, and then I wrote Sell It.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. And it, I'm not saying that everyone should do it that way and that was the right way to do it. I'm just saying that's what happened. Sometimes you just got to trust it and do it. And I felt like I could write Love It. That was the first thing I wrote. And then when I was writing Live It, it felt good. And then when I wrote Sell It, it felt great,
Well, and that's the thing. You, as a creative, and even if you're not creative, you have to get in that creativity. You have to go with whatever comes at you. So if inspiration hits, you got to write it down. And you can't, really go in it's not step number 1. It's like step number 10. You got to write it down because you may not get it back.
It's so true. It's so true. Don't be frightened to really let yourself go and be free when you write. It's a great feeling and it makes a great book.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it just needs to come together, which is where your kind of hybrid publishers or even just a friend who's any good at reading it back, somebody else can look at it and say, yes, it takes me on the journey that I want it to take me on. Because that's the point, that it takes the reader on the journey.
I love it. Jules, I could sit here and talk to you all day long. I hate to end it.
Me too.
I hate to end it, but this is so good. And we got to catch up more often because this is fun. And I just love what you're doing. And yes, I want to see that blog post or whatever whatever medium you use to do that. But I want to see all the stuff that you've sold in the past. And I'll keep you posted, on the book / lesson stuff.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Dive deeper into the conversation with this guest as well as others by going to yestoentrepreneurship.com/podcast. Over there, you will find a list of all the previous episodes, and I hope that you'll continue to share out this podcast, and please be sure to leave a review in iTunes so that way others can discover this show and be able to realize they are not alone and that they have somebody they can count on to provide value and motivate and inspire them to keep moving forward. Together, we can make it happen. And like I always say, teamwork equals success. So go out there and do something great because why not?